The damp bed linens flap in the breeze as Ellie hangs them one by one onto the clothesline. The breeze is a welcome break in the last few weeks of heat and humidity. A threatening sky looms over Ellie, even though the forecast does not call for rain. The persistent sting of bleach aggravates her hands as she glances down to see that her knuckles have turned a light shade of red. She anxiously rubs her hands together in an attempt to soothe them. A wasp hisses in her ear, distracting her. Her efforts to swat it away make it more aggressive, forcing her to run into the house. The singed grass pricks her bare feet. The house is silent. Ellie's husband, Jack, has been away the past 2 days on another business trip. He is expected home any minute. His promotion 4 years ago came with a significant pay increase, but it also doubled his time away from Ellie and their 5-year-old daughter, Sarah. Ellie works over 40 hours a week as a cardiologist, so she doesn't spend much quality time with her family. Jack and Ellie's schedules grew so demanding that they decided to hire a live-in nanny to take care of Sarah. They had every intention of it being a temporary situation, but the nanny, Abby, lived with them for over 2 years now. Lonely nights during Jack's absence used to be unbearable for Ellie, but she didn't miss him anymore. Ellie sighs at the thought of more dirty laundry waiting for her in the basement. She turns the handle of the basement door to head downstairs when a piercing wail resounds behind her. Ellie releases the door handle and turns around to find an empty room. "Get it together, Ellie," she mumbles, smirking as she opens the basement door. Ellie flips the light switch on and steps down onto the staircase that leads into the basement. A flickering light beams through the bottom of the door to the spare bedroom. Ellie hesitates on the staircase and curiously tilts her head, knowing that she turned the bedroom light off just a few hours ago. Her legs suddenly give out and she tumbles down the stairs, landing face down on the floor. Ellie remains still as a melancholy hum echoes from the spare bedroom. She stands up slowly, her hands trembling. As she moves closer to the door of the spare bedroom, the humming stops and the basement goes dark. Ellie gasps, unable to take another step. Surrounded by darkness, a chill creeps up her arms. The musical snow globe in the spare bedroom begins to play, Ring Around the Rosie. Ellie immediately recognizes the nursery rhyme and forces herself to move. She feels her way through the basement until she reaches the door at the top of the stairs. Ellie desperately jiggles the door handle, but it's locked. She pounds on the door, pleading for it to open, and she continues to struggle with the handle. The snow globe music blares throughout the basement and deafens her cries for help. Ellie's lips quiver as a bitter cold moves across the basement. The humming returns in unison with the snow globe music. Ellie's eyes dart toward the transparent figure that hovers in front of the door to the spare bedroom. Dread silences her as she gazes at it, aware that it is slowly moving towards her. Her hands grow weak and she loses her grip on the door handle at the realization of who the figure is. She clasps her hands over her ears and closes her eyes, waiting for it to stop. "Mommy?" Ellie opens her eyes to see that the basement lights are back on. The snow globe is no longer playing, the basement door is open, and Sarah is standing in front of her. "Sarah, did you lock the door? Where is Abby, Mommy? We're supposed to go on the swings today. She promised. Did you hear music playing, Sarah? Mommy, where's Abby? She promised me. She promised." "People break promises," Ellie says under her breath. "Abby! Abby!" Sarah calls down to the basement, trying to force herself past Ellie. "Go upstairs to your room, Sarah, now!" Sarah keeps her eyes focused on Ellie and slowly steps backwards until she reaches the staircase leading up to her bedroom. She stomps up the steps and slams the bedroom door behind her. Ellie peers down the basement staircase, unsettled by what just happened. She cautiously walks back down the stairs and into the spare bedroom. It is the same bedroom Abby has been living in ever since she was hired. Ellie slowly scans the bedroom. An opaque white vase of yellow tulips is placed on the bedside table. A romance novel sits atop an antique bookcase that Jack helped Abby refinish. A floral satin bathrobe hangs on the back of the door, and a vanity set is adorned with perfume, pearls, in a tube of raspberry pink lipstick. Ellie catches a glimpse of herself in the vanity mirror and lets out a moan of disgust at her appearance. She traces the dark circles under her eyes with her fingers, then runs them down over the tiny wrinkles above her top lip, trying to remember the last time she even wore lipstick. Her once long blonde hair became a pixie cut because she couldn't be bothered to style it anymore. A t-shirt and jeans was as fancy as her wardrobe got as of late. Ellie rolls her eyes and thinks about how she cannot compete with Abby's long, wavy chestnut hair, youthful skin, and perfect frame. Ellie's eyes land on the musical snow globe sitting on the dresser that Sarah gave Abby for her birthday a few months ago. Inside the glass, there is a scene of a playground with children who hold hands and dance to the nursery rhyme, Ring Around the Rosie. It is Sarah and Abby's favorite song to sing together. The two of them would mimic the scene in the snow globe, giggling as they skipped around in a circle. They repeated the routine until they were too dizzy to continue. Ellie thought it was adorable at first, but lately she had no patience for it. She was pleased whenever Abby caught on to her irritation and put a stop to it, much to Sarah's begging that they continue. Ellie picks up the snow globe and inspects it to see that the winder was broken off of the bottom, leaving it unable to play. "That's impossible," she whispers. Her unsteady hand places it back down. She frantically searches the carpet and under Abby's bed for the winder, but instead discovers a sealed envelope wedged in between the bed frame and the wall. It is addressed to her. She recognizes Jack's handwriting and immediately opens it, but a loud thump upstairs interrupts her. She tucks the envelope into her pocket, quietly closes Abby's bedroom door, and walks back upstairs. When she reaches the top of the stairs, the melancholy humming returns, only this time higher pitched, and it's resonating from the kitchen. Ellie takes a deep, anxious breath and slowly makes her way towards the kitchen door. Just as she reaches the entrance, she steps on a piece of metal embedded in the carpet. She cries out in pain as it penetrates the bottom of her foot. The immediate throbbing forces her to hop on one foot. She plummets headfirst onto the corner of the coffee table, unaware that it causes Jack's letter to fall out of her pocket. She makes an attempt to get up, but is dazed when she notices drops of blood on the carpet. Ellie gently touches her forehead and winces as a gush of blood trickles into her mouth. The metallic taste nearly causes her to choke. Coughing and out of breath, she carefully sits up to gather herself, wiping the blood away from her mouth. Desperate to ease the throbbing in her foot, she pulls it forward and places it across her opposite leg. She gasps when she sees the object lodged into her foot. It is the missing winder to Abby's snow globe. Ellie clenches her teeth, grunting as she promptly removes it and throws it across the room. The humming grows louder and full of anguish. Ellie is overcome by dizziness, but manages to pull herself up and limp into the kitchen. Sarah is sitting under the table, rocking back and forth. Her face is buried in her knees, and her long, unkempt blonde hair is draped over her arms. "Enough of that song, Sarah!" Ellie shouts. Sarah is unresponsive and continues to rock back and forth. Her humming then becomes words. Sarah's tiny voice shakes as she struggles to sing through each word. Ellie groans at the whiny repetitiveness of her singing voice. "Sarah, enough!" Ellie demands, kneeling down to her. Sarah stops singing but does not acknowledge her mother. Ellie clutches Sarah's arm and attempts to pull her out from under the table. Her touch provokes Sarah to gaze up and let out a high-pitched scream, causing Ellie to fall back onto the frigid floor. Sarah's prolonged scream grows louder. "I said enough, Sarah!" Ellie shouts. Sarah abruptly stops screaming and looks at Ellie, wide-eyed and afraid. "What is the matter with you?" Ellie asks her. "Blood," Sarah responds with a weak whisper. Ellie is puzzled by her reply. Sarah throws her head back into her knees and rocks violently and carries on with her melancholy version of the nursery rhyme. Growing impatient with Sarah's behavior, Ellie inches back towards her with the intention of yanking her off the floor. She touches her throbbing forehead and flinches, unaware of how serious her head injury is. Sarah cuts off the nursery rhyme once again and looks past Ellie as if she is invisible. "Abby," Sarah whispers. Ellie immediately turns her head, but nobody is there. Sarah covers her face with her hands and creeps backwards until the kitchen wall forces her to stop. Ellie towers over her. "Get up, now," Ellie orders, her voice monotone. Sarah sings the nursery rhyme once more, hushed to a whisper. She drags out each word as she sings. "Ring around the rose, a pocket full of bows, ashes, ashes." At her wit's end, Ellie ignores Sarah and tends to her wound. She stands at the kitchen window and reaches for a towel, pressing it against her head to stop the bleeding. Her eyes move directly outside to the clothesline. The light breeze is now a rigorous wind that violently smacks the bed linens together. Ellie focuses on them, tuning out Sarah's voice. She desperately wants to look away from them, but her eyes will not allow it. Ellie gasps as blood trickles down the linens. A shadowy figure stands behind them just as Sarah snaps her back to reality. "Stop it!" Ellie shouts, slamming her fist down on the sink. Finally, it is quiet. Ellie turns around and is startled by Sarah standing in front of her. Her vacant eyes are fixed on Ellie as she steps away from her, brushing her feet against the floor. Ellie turns back to the window to find that the bed linens on the clothesline have stopped moving. They are completely still, the dripping blood gone. Ellie warily observes them. "Abby told me she was dead." Ellie jumps at the sound of Sarah's voice. "Abby is dead! Dead! Dead!" Ellie's thoughts trail off. "I'm not a fool," Ellie says out loud, not concerned about having any discretion. Ellie recalls the moment she came home from working nearly 15 hours straight at the hospital to discover Abby and Jack in her bedroom downstairs. She overheard them having a conversation about her. "We have to make sure she doesn't find out about this," Jack says to Abby. "She won't find out a thing. I've got it covered," Abby replies. "Are you sure?" Jack asks. "She hasn't questioned you about anything yet, has she?" Abby responds. "No, but then stop worrying. She's clueless," Abby reassures him. That was 3 months ago. Ellie wondered how long they were sneaking around behind her back until that moment. After she overheard their conversation, she noticed how often the two would steal quick glances from one another and giggle at each other's dull jokes. With Jack out of town, Ellie confronted Abby. It started out as a friendly conversation in Abby's bedroom about Sarah. Abby glowed when she talked about how much fun Sarah had on the playground swings at the park. She smiled as she told Ellie that she was looking forward to taking her back the next day. Ellie turned the conversation dark when she commented on Abby's new, low-cut coral sundress. She accused her of buying it to impress Jack. Abby denied any guilt. When Ellie mentioned the conversation she overheard between her and Jack, Abby begged her to listen to her explanation. She reached into the drawer of her bedside table with the intent of showing Ellie a letter that proved her assumptions were wrong. While Abby's back was turned, an enraged Ellie picked up her snow globe and struck her in the head with it. The letter was thrown out of Abby's hand and landed in between the bed frame and the wall as she collapsed to the floor. Blood gushed down Abby's face, and seconds later, she was unconscious. In a panic, Ellie pulled the linens off of Abby's bed and wrapped her in them. Dragging Abby through the basement caused her blood to spill on the hardwood floors, leaving a trail all the way up the stairs. Ellie disposed of Abby deep into the woods behind the house, expecting that insects and rodents would take care of her remains. She spent all night washing the blood-soaked linens and mopping the floors with bleach, making sure that she removed every trace of their confrontation. And the last thing she scrubbed clean was the snow globe. She polished it back into perfect condition before placing it back on Abby's dresser, as if it had never been touched. Exhausted and apathetic, Ellie leaves Sarah alone, weeping on the kitchen floor. She walks upstairs with a towel still pressed to the wound on her head. When she reaches her bedroom, she falls onto the bed and closes her eyes, drifting off to sleep. Minutes later, she is jolted awake by a whisper in her ear. Ashes. Ellie shoots up in bed to find no one there. Who's there? She asks aloud. No response. Ellie sits on the edge of the bed and lets out a deep sigh as she rubs her throbbing forehead. She looks down to see her pillowcase stained with dried blood from her wound. Disturbed by the sight of it, she flips it to the other side. A family photograph on her bedside table catches her attention. Ellie longingly studies it, reflecting back to happier times. She picks up the photograph and falls back to sleep with it clutched to her chest. Hours pass before she is awakened by the weight of the bed shifting. Ellie assumes Jack is home from his business trip. Jack says nothing, but Ellie feels him press against her, his breath on her neck. Don't touch me, Ellie says. Jack is silent. I am not stupid, Jack. He still says nothing. Ellie is bothered by his lack of responsiveness. You'll never see Sarah again, Ellie threatens. Still, Jack did not reply. You have nothing to... Ashes. Ellie is cut off by a whisper in her ear. Ellie's eyes widen. She sits up in bed and looks around the room, but she is alone. The street lights shine through the window and urge her to check the time. She is troubled to learn that she was sleeping for the last 3 hours. Sarah is giggling in her bedroom, and Ellie walks down the hallway, ready to confront Jack. She stops at the faint sound of breaking glass downstairs. She walks to the top of the steps and looks down the staircase, but it is too dark to see anything. Jack, are you down there? Abby asks. She turns on the light, but the light bulb shatters, startling her. She grabs onto the banister and slowly moves onto the first step. A breeze makes its way up the stairs and hits Ellie's legs, causing goosebumps to form on her skin. She shudders, but it is not the cold air that is causing her to tremble. Jack? She repeats, hesitating on the next step, desperate for a response. Ellie's back is grazed by a cold presence. She screams out and loses her balance, tumbling downstairs. She hits the bottom hard, where a sharp object opens up the wound on her head. Ellie is weak, but she has enough strength to jerk the sharp object out of her head. Her trembling hand grasps a piece of glass from Abby's broken snow globe, which lays beside her, covered in blood. The humming of the nursery rhyme returns. Mid-song, the humming changes to words. It takes only a moment for Ellie to recognize the voice. Abby. She crawls to get away as a bloody, dead Abby staggers down the stairs. Jack's letter suddenly lands in front of her. Ellie reads the letter in horror. My dearest Ellie, I know things have been chaotic since I took that promotion at work. Our insane work schedules barely allow us to see each other anymore. But I miss you. I thought it was time for the two of us to get away. Abby has been helping me plan the entire thing the last few months. So pack your bags. We'll be sipping margaritas on the beach in no time. I love you always, Jack. No, Ellie cries. She lets out a guttural scream at the sight of Abby's lifeless, glassy eyes glaring at her. Abby's sundress is filthy and torn. The gash on her head bloodied her face and brunette locks. She limps closer to Ellie and sings the nursery rhyme, intensifying to a wail. Crippled at Abby's piercing gaze, Ellie turns her head away only to find the bloody, shattered snow globe surrounding her. Her heartbeat grows weaker. Ellie gasps for air, her eyes fixated on the broken pieces of the snow globe. She takes one last deep breath before her heart stops beating. Abby is silent and emotionless as she towers over Ellie's body. Moments later, she resumes singing. Ashes, ashes, we all fall dead. Around the roses, pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all